Sports professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that goes inside the trillion-dollar business of sports. Happy New Year. It's even bigger now as the NFL playoffs intensify, heading for Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota. The Redskins, the Ravens not in, focusing on how they get in the future. And it is a 365-day, 24-hour business, and everybody monetizes hopes. Jeffrey Lurie's term, owner of the Eagles. Monetizing hope means you create excitement, and that generates dollars, and that capitalizes on the excitement. We've got a guy who is really the architect of Pegula Sports, the VP of Business Development, CEO and Executive VP, Bruce Popko. He's been with the Buffalo Sabres, Buffalo Bandits, Buffalo Bills, Rochester Americans, running it for years. The bottom line is he's been involved as the CEO for a year and a half. The team's made the playoffs for the first time since 1999. Everybody thinks it's over. No, the work's just starting. They're building a solid future, but they got to get a stadium deal done. So I think it's probably better to hear from Bruce Popko now than it would have been before the game that they played against the Jaguars, which was lackluster to say the least, but at least gives them something to build on. We have a lot of NFL stuff today and a lot of Olympic stuff today, and obviously subscribe to Google Play, Audio Boom, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, iTunes feed. Listen to all of us, and if you want to see our 15 to watch and 55 topics from technology and 5 topics from social good as well, CSN Washington, NBC Washington, Mid-Atlantic. Look it up on all of the digital outlets, as well as listening to us right here. We'll take some of those topics and make them priorities. But before we talk about the NFL, let's talk to CEO Pegula Sports and Entertainment, Bruce Popko. Sports professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, keeping score in the boardroom. Diversity is the name of the game. And we're here at this primetime conference, the 10th annual, as we do every year. This is different. We have somebody whose head probably gets a little tired because he has 14 million hats that the guy wears. He's Pegula Sports Entertainment. He worked with the Jets, the Browns, a whole bunch of other teams, IMG, diverse experience, and now diverse and diverse. Bruce Popko, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
So we don't have enough time, but kind of go through your career from teams to IMG and then Pegula Sports.
Sure. It's really been almost primarily in football. Yeah. Grew up working for the New York Jets, went to the league office, which is in Manhattan, got recruited out of there to go to San Francisco, spent a few years there, then ended up migrating back to head east towards Cleveland. 12 years in Cleveland, split between the Cleveland Browns and then IMG, to your point. Working on the golf side of the business for 5 years, and then got the itch to try to get back into football, and went to the Bills, and have been there for starting my 10th season.
So before we talk about Pegula Sports a bit, because it's not just football,
sure.
It's lacrosse, it's minor league, it's everything. The IMG piece was primarily golf, and you're primarily a football guy. The skills that you need to master all of those jobs, are they more similar or are they more different?
Very similar. I think ultimately you're still relating to the people, whether it's a sponsor that you're looking to get on board, whether it's managing an athlete and something that they're doing. I actually managed 2 players during my golf days there. Patrick Harrington I did domestically, and then Natalie Gulbis on the LPGA side. So 2 very different personalities.
And he was winning when you managed him.
Yeah, Patrick had won the British Open at that point.
Did you have any input in
No, I was really his domestic stuff, so kind of helping out here and there and with some deals and things like that. Natalie was much more kind of really direct input, helping her out. She was at a point in her career where she had been injured a little bit, so she was trying to get back to kind of the stability of being on tour and playing a normal tour schedule. She was and still is one of the most personable. Yeah. I mean, someone that really you could send out into any situation and you knew would be, it would be, just fireworks and everybody would be excited about her presence. Still stay in touch with her today, so she's a great person. So.
But golf, women's, men's, lacrosse now, minor leagues in all contexts. But then Pegula Sports was really giving you an opportunity to cover the waterfront.
Yeah, for sure. It's, as I always say, sort of deal making is deal making. Yeah. Regardless of whether you're doing it in either a sponsorship and advertising realm we're doing commercial real estate development now in kind of the near proximity to the arena. We're doing, lease fronting kind of the conversation even in Rochester with our minor league hockey affiliate, the Rochester Americans. So yeah, sort of doing deals is sort of doing deals. You begin to draw in expertise for things that you don't have sort of maybe core competency against, but ultimately like being able to strike the deals is the most, inspiring part of what we do every day.
Let's talk about the Bills in the NFL first. New stadium process. What's going on?
We're at this sort of inflection point where we've got, after the season, we'll have 5 years left on the current lease, for now what is a 43-year-old building.
Yeah.
Bones are still good. We put, a bunch of money into it 3 years ago now. So it's doing well. What the long-term viability just physically of the building is the next thing that we have to study. I think there's a lot of talk about, building a new building would be great. Developing kind of this enormous downtown entertainment district, maybe around the arena where the Sabres play, would be wonderful. It's a long process. I mean, if we sort of reflect on Atlanta, and Atlanta had their land already basically right next to the Georgia Dome, and that was still 10 years. So even if we kind of tell Terry and Kim Pagula, our owners, even if we start today, we're probably 8 years in a minimum, because we probably wouldn't go as grand as Mercedes-Benz, and what they did in Atlanta. But I will tell you, it's a very long journey. We don't have those answers yet. There's so many twists and turns, and really, the economic equation to take on that much debt in a market of our size is difficult than doing it in a top 20 market in the United States.
But Western New York loves the Bills, and the public-private partnership opportunities are still there.
For sure. And I will tell you, it's been a really strong partnership that we've had with both the county and the state of New York, Erie County and the state of New York. That will continue. The leadership there has been great. This will now become really kind of big stakes poker, though. I mean, this is really now you're talking about, what will probably end up being hundreds of millions of dollars deployed somewhere, either in the existing stadium for the next round of kind of super renovation, or trying to figure out if a new building makes more sense for us.
You realize some of the deals that have been done, and they're all over the map, but Steve Ross went into the super renovation, and now he looks back after $500 million, and his bones are fine, but it's an entirely new facility.
It is. It's an entirely new facility, and I think that much like his orientation, really supplementing and creating the best fan experience that he could possibly do is at the forefront, I know, of a lot of their thinking, because it was, to your point, it was good bones, but the fan experience elements of it were probably substandard. And I think he's changed that very dramatically. And, to your point, you said you'd gone to a bunch of games. Just the vibe there is different than it was 5 years ago.
It's no longer just an open-air stadium.
Right.
It's not an open-air stadium.
Right. Yeah.
Retractable opportunity there?
I think that at least what Terry Pagula, our owner, has said is he likes open air. He likes, the inherent advantage that we have of being open air. If I was to speculate, and it's really kind of more a little bit of my own speculation and just listening closely enough to him, I would think we'd probably do something more like Seattle, where you'd have a roof that would cover a good portion of the stands but still be open air, and kind of go with that sort of model.
Where's Toronto fit in the regional equation of all this?
Hugely important. You can't ignore 6-7 million people that are up here. Really that Southern Ontario side of us and that draw that we get from kind of Hamilton on down becomes a vital part of. They're a little bit less relevant in terms of season tickets, but they're very relevant in terms of individual games. Like they really participate in game by game, kind of decide how they're going to interact, but it's a pretty big portion of our fan base.
Why are the cynics being listened to so much for the NFL now, business-wise? The ratings, the injuries on Thursday night. There's the same arguments, but people seem to be listening.
I think that when you're on top, the arrows kind of come with a little bit more frequency ultimately. The funny part is you never hear the ratings decline conversation ever done in a comparative sense. It's always done in absolute terms of just us, but you never put it against where is primetime falling? Where are other sports falling? And you sort of say it's also off of a much bigger base. So ultimately, to have that kind of drop off of that big a base, you sit and I'm always most concerned with what are the TV executives themselves saying.
Yeah.
And when they tell you that live sports entertainment programming is still kind of the panacea that fixes all, or at least kind of the North Star that they can rely on, you're in good shape.
How much do you care about what advertisers are telling you? So some of the media will take the outlying advertiser and point to some returns like Papa John's and say, hey, the NFL's not performing for me.
Yeah, and I think for them, they had a very specific orientation to the underperformance or lack of performance, which was around some player behavior, some player activity stuff.
Right.
You know, I think candidly they're probably an outlier. You know, we deal in the television advertising arena every day for both the big teams, because for the hockey team as well, we produce all our games, we sell all the advertising against that on MSG, and I will tell you, we don't really get complaints like that. Now, we also are in a region where our ratings really hold very well, regardless of if we haven't really performed on the field to the degree we would like to. But I think it's a lot of chatter when it really comes down
And
to
fan
it.
avidity, obviously, very important. And by the way, to the ones that are listening, the pepperoni pizza killed that a little bit. The ones with there's a lot of grapefruit, there's a lot of pineapple. That stuff's really good.
Yeah,
by the
for
way.
sure.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So
Even the little chicken wing
the
pizzas.
chicken wing pizzas are,
can't go wrong
I'm
with
telling
that.
you,
So,
and it's supposed
to
to be healthy.
partial to
if you don't-
buffalo.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
right, exactly. But it's hard to eat the pizza without the bread. But that's
Yeah,
another
yeah,
entirely
yeah,
different
right.
story. So, all right. So on field, on ice performance. Let's shift to the Sabres for a second. You have a magnificent development plan for downtown Buffalo. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we are in a 21-year-old building in KeyBank Center, so we are sort of ripe for that next level of renovation. Same idea, really enhancing fan experience, really taking advantage of some of the parts of the real estate itself and the footprint to make sure we put enough programming in there that the fans want to be there early and stay late. I mean, it's as simple as that. We've built Harbor Center right next to it, which is 2 sheets of ice, largely oriented towards the amateur side of the game.
Yeah.
We've got the World Juniors coming in the end of the year now, and now all of a sudden we're beginning to sort of shift our focus or add to our focus some other commercial development. So really kind of beginning to extend the perimeter, create more of an entertainment district. We just bought an 80,000 square foot facility literally directly across the street from the arena, redeveloping that into a restaurant and a brewery. Labatt is relocating their headquarters there, their corporate headquarters there. So exciting times as we kind of are sort of right in the middle of a lot of developments going on in the city of Buffalo.
And my buddy Nick Shakevich would kill me if I didn't ask about lacrosse.
Yeah,
So
sure.
what's your thought about that?
Love it. I actually played field lacrosse in college, so I was a bad player on a really good team, as I tell everybody. So I have a huge affinity for the sport. My boys play it. My daughter played it as well when she was in high school. So Nick and I had lunch yesterday. We're talking about kind of the future of the league. We're very, very bullish on it. Love where the Bandits sit in relation to the teams that are in the league. We look at ourselves as, we're kind of the old guard to some degree, 26 years in existence now. We lead the league in attendance, or we fight it out with Saskatchewan kind of now year in and year out with all the success that they've had. So I think the future is incredibly bright for that league, and I think Nick and kind of the captain's chair is going to be really great for us.
Pagula Sports, give me a sense of how the Pagulas feel about their investments, probably more so in Western New York. They're custodians of a very significant economic development engine.
Yeah, no, and I will tell you, they take that custodial responsibility incredibly seriously. And the great part about what they are trying to do, every project and every piece of sort of growth that we look at is really about creating jobs. And I think it's sort of not to be understated in this day and age is, Terry and Kim don't do it for vanity. They don't do it for accolade. They hate getting awards. They do it because they know that they can be a growth engine in our community, and they take that job very seriously.
And they've come to be recognized in the pantheon of fantastic community owners like the Crafts in New England and otherwise.
Sure, exactly. I mean, you look at Patriot Place, and while that was, certainly pioneering when it came on, took them a little while to kind of get the momentum, but you look at just what it is right now, what it represents. We're in a little different situation in terms of where we are geographically, but then you look at, we have the same kind of footprint surrounding New Era Field right now. It's not out of the realm of possibility that if we decide to stay in that stadium, that's the next wave of development that might accompany it.
And they put together great full service. They have an analytics component and otherwise that are first rate.
They do. I mean, you look at kind of across the board, and as much as we compete with them on the field, we can't stand the run of success that they've had. You have to admire everything that they've done and the diversity of their portfolio.
Yeah.
They're just like us. They've got, teams in multiple leagues that they manage and a lot of other business units, and it's become kind of what you have to do to gain, I think, the utmost relevance and really take advantage of the economies that you afford yourself. We have centralized a lot of our marketing, business development, finance across all these teams and all these entities, and there's great economies that are afforded us.
Speaking of economies and diversity, so do you wake up someday and say, which sport am I going to deal with today? How do you allocate your time?
You do a little bit, and you have to really make a conscious effort to be relevant sort of wherever you're going.
Yeah.
So, you have to make a point of, I'm driving down to the stadium today. I'm going to go kind of walk the halls a little bit. I'm going to go to the arena today, be around the Sabres and the Bandits. I'm going to go to Rochester today. That's probably the biggest thing, is just learning now in this sort of newer position for me, that discipline of don't forget about anybody.
Do you have a routine, so it's Monday, Wednesday?
I don't. I will tell you, it really is a little bit more as kind of catch as catch can.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's, you put the fireman hat on and you might be putting out fires a little bit. And then in the midst of it, you sort of fill out and say, kind of, what haven't I done this week, or what haven't I paid attention to this week?
What have you given up because you're running 48 franchises now? You look like a golfer because you're pretty low to the ground. So what are you doing? Well, you can't play golf in Buffalo anyway for 9 months out of the year.
Like everything, life's about balance. I think that, unfortunately, we're sort of attached to our phones and that sort of thing. But I really haven't given up much. It's really just a matter of orientation, and a huge part of it has been delegation. A lot of the things that I used to feel like I had to be strictly involved in or see on the way out or whatever it was, you have to, we've trusted the management team we've put together. They're a very talented group of individuals. You got to go let them do their jobs.
So finally, where is Bruce Popko and where is Pagula Sports 5 years from now?
5 years from now, Tom is retired, hopefully, and not playing for the Patriots anymore.
There's a direct message.
Jack has maybe Eichel's got it, maybe his second ring on at that point. It's all trending in the right direction. I think that you sort of see where these franchises are going. You see where Buffalo is going as a city. When I got there, there were never cranes in the air. There were a lot of, closed up buildings, and it just, the orientation of the city and the city getting beyond kind of feeling sorry for itself or having to make excuses for itself has really changed. And I just see that it's going to sort of catapult, I think, from here.
Testimonial about sports and economic development.
Without a doubt. I mean, we're part of it. There's a huge medical community there. There's a lot of other things that are driving it. And we're really happy to be hitting it at kind of just a true renaissance moment.
So as work-life balance continues, next time the Bills are down south, we need to tee it up.
Yeah, for sure. Love to.
Deal, man.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
Well, Bruce Popko obviously has a lot to tell us, and the Jaguars beat the Bills, but yet that's not the big issue in Buffalo. The big issue in Buffalo is how you build on what you've got. The NFL has some issues building on what they've got as well. Sports Business Journal reports a 9% decrease in video watching this season, a 20% drop for the league overall the past 2 seasons. Media rights holders went through disappointing trends: Sunday Night Football, Monday night to Thursday night to Sunday afternoon. Despite an exciting finish to the Panthers and Saints and a close one in Kansas City, nothing in the overall lackluster NFL playoffs suggests the numbers might change. But what about the numbers? The numbers, to me, are just an amalgamation of who watches television. Doesn't include internet, doesn't include iPhone, doesn't include iPads, mobile devices, and the like. And who watches those? Well, young people, demographics the NFL covets. And obviously, the real key now is not only increasing the viewership, but even more important than that, getting the right measurement. Measuring apples to oranges, it doesn't work. Measuring the right number of eyeballs total last year versus this year is something we can build on. So hopefully that does work in the future. What does work today is charity. Talked to you about going to Jacksonville to watch the playoff game. They hosted their first game in the playoffs at home since '99. Ironically, the Bills were around during that time, but during an announcement posted on the Jaguars website, 1,000 tickets dispersed to refugees in Florida, Puerto Ricans who fled the island in the wake of the devastation wrought by Hurricane Irma and Maria. North and Central Florida received half the available seats. The remaining 500 went to refugees from other parts of the world who are currently in northern Florida. As of November 30, over 200,000 individuals migrated from Puerto Rico to Florida. Between 500,000 and 750,000 will be forced to settle over the next 4 years. So obviously a big deal for the Jaguars, and very excited about, quote unquote, doing the right thing. The NFL shifts gears right now as they focus on the NFL playoffs and going into the Super Bowl. When you take a look at where the league is going, playoff-wise, sponsors, marketers, branding agencies alike have their eyes set on the Super Bowl and the rest of the playoffs. Super Bowl 52, February 4, the special deal for a number of companies. BMG Senior Vice President of Marketing, Commercials, and Film and TV, Alex Flores, says the going price for a 30-second ad tops $5 million. Last year, about 5. Ad Age reported 51 advertisers paid a total of $385 million to reach an estimated 112 million viewers, about 2.3% of total U.S. broadcast network TV ad spending for the year. Incredible. To increase overall engagement with the agencies, NBC offering package deals for the Super Bowl and the Olympics, which they also hold the media rights to, and we'll talk about the Olympics in a few minutes. But as you go forward with the Super Bowl, you also look at some of the other promotions that are happening. FanDuel sets Bitcoin as a prize for NFL playoffs. They're offering thousands of dollars worth of Bitcoin to users competing in its upcoming NFL fantasy sports playoffs. The company said the first fantasy football contest to award Bitcoin to winners and the first sports tech company to award cryptocurrency in a consumer promotion. During week 2 of the playoffs, FanDuel hosts a free single-entry contest called the Bitcoin Bowl, a multi-entry $3 tournament called the Bitcoin Bowl Tournament with a tiered payout structure of 2 Bitcoins for first place, a half Bitcoin for second, and a quarter for third and fourth place. Well, some of us don't know what that means, but I guarantee you a lot of people will be playing it. Let's talk stadiums. Well, first, the Minnesota Vikings, the first in the NFL to launch virtual reality apps for Oculus. Vikings' home U.S. Bank Stadium can seat exactly 666,655 fans. A gigantic number, but it's actually in the bottom third of all NFL stadiums. And knowing that the team's following is much larger than that number, the Vikings have come up with a new way to bring fans inside the stadium. They're becoming the first NFL team to launch a VR application for Oculus, and creating an app. The Vikings partnered with the Silicon Valley-based Zealty, specializing in 360 VR, and has previously partnered with the San Jose Sharks, an Oculus app, downloadable in the Oculus Store, compatible with Oculus Rift and Gear VR. Vikings VR allows the user to explore U.S. Bank Stadium through a 360-degree video and pictures. Footage from every home game played since the stadium's opening in 2016, available on the app. Now you're talking, finally, content with the VR stuff, not just video games. That'll be important. Well, the stadium issues are really important there, and stadium issues important everywhere. The Chargers and Rams beginning to take shape with their stadiums slowly and steadily. Inglewood Stadium more than a quarter complete. Unexpected series of heavy rains pushed the opening date back to 2020. Irrigation system added to the site in order to prevent any further rain delays. This is going to be basically digitized to the point where you flip the switch and it's branded all Chargers, says Dean Spanos. Flip another switch, it's branded Rams. Flip another switch, 2 college teams playing there. Stadium expected to cost a tiny little $2.6 billion. Though that number could balloon if any unexpected obstacles or problems arise before 2020. So NFL looking up as far as a lot of those issues. And we said before, NFL was facing some leadership issues. They got Roger Goodell committed for his $200 million contract, which may be more if the league makes more. Jerry Jones wins because it's now incentivized and everybody gains. The social media component, NFL puts the $100 million on the table and provides it to people who will be able to allocate dollars to bail reform, social justice, urban education, and the like. And NFL also focusing, obviously, on the big deals such as labor negotiations and international expansion and stadiums, which are all really, really important. And promotion, by the way. We talked about television before, but 6 teams are eligible to be on Hard Knocks. We're thinking about that already. Niners, Broncos, Browns, Chargers, Ravens, Redskins. Seems to be an interesting list, but 2 of the teams have made it clear they want nothing to do with it. The Niners GM John Lynch said the prospect of being selected on Hard Knocks, he says, I love the show, but I think some things are best left behind closed doors, and I fundamentally have a problem with cutting players and things of that nature on camera. They wouldn't be thrilled about it, he says. Baltimore Ravens told HBO their facility renovation last year would make it a logistical nightmare for the show. And my money's on the Browns. with the top pick and fans devoted enough to turn out for an 0-18 or 0-16 victory parade in bitter cold, the franchise seems deserving of the HBO honor. We'll see. How about the other piece of the NFL? How about coaches? Well, there is the publicized rift. Will he or won't he? Will Tom Brady and Robert Kraft clean up their serious disagreement outside of New England? The NFL is facing a serious case of Patriots fatigue. While the purported end of the road for the triumvirate won't be good for the team, it might be excellent for the league, but nobody knows whether that's really going to happen or not. And how about the other coaches issue? The Jack Del Rio retirement announcement gives rise to the multi-year John Gruden campaign issue. $10 million a year reported, 10 years. How about that? $100 million or more. No equity, probably. Owners have to approve equity for any limited partner. Hard to imagine owners would approve a limited partner of that magnitude that will increase coaches' salaries for everybody. I think John Gruden takes the $100 million guaranteed without worrying about the equity. And clearly, it sends a ripple effect to coaches all over the NFL. Second big issue, college football this week. College football focusing on the national champion. Congratulations, UCF. Oh, wait, well, they're not national champion. You talk to them and they say they are. 13-0. They announced national championship. They have a parade on campus. Yeah, the only issue is they don't play in a Power 5, and while it may eventually happen, the short term requires better thinking about how to ensure a quality team like the Knights gets into something despite not playing in the Power 5. Expanding the playoffs sounds great this time of year, but economically and legally very difficult to do. But since we're in the national championship time, everybody focusing on the revenues of college football, couple of things resonate. How do you raise revenues? Gambling happening, waiting for the Supreme Court decision, selling naming rights to facilities, the LA Coliseum, $4.7 million to United Airlines, Alaska Airlines Field at Husky Stadium, Kroger Field for Kentucky, Apogee Stadium at North Texas, Spectrum Stadium at Central Florida, Albertson Stadium at Boise State. Well, that's a big deal. Another $4 million total. Liquor sales, 36 on campus, 14 on campus. Now the only issue is going to be, how do you divide those revenues? How do you pay athletes? How do you pay Title IX sports? It's a hornet's nest, but it's a hornet's nest that definitely has to be resolved. And finally, the Olympics. It captures the headlines, and it should. The Olympics have been a major concern for fans and sponsors as far as security. But President Trump and South Korea President Moon Jae-in came to a mutual decision on not holding any joint military drills during the Olympics. And North Korea and South Korea are having discussions. First time meaningful diplomacy since China and ping pong. And the South Korean Olympic Organizing Committee is preparing for a potential late entry for the North Korean delegation. The IOC has said several times it would support North Korea's participation. Talks have been conducted, and while the announcement of North Korean participation will draw national media attention, it won't contribute to increased ticket and hotel room sales in Korea. You know what? Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, this is more important than probably anything. The hotel rooms spiked to more than $460 per night, more than triple the ticket prices. Ripping off customers has been talked about. And of course, the logistics to get to Pyeongchang from Seoul, those are big issues, but not as big as what might be happening in the boardroom and politically as well. As we get into athletics itself, we'll talk about some of the social issues. Gus Kenworthy will be the first openly gay athlete to compete in the Winter Olympics, and since coming out, he's earned sponsorships from Visa, Procter & Gamble, United Airlines, Deloitte, and been honored by the Human Rights Campaign. In February, Kenworthy plans to compete in both slopestyle and halfpipe at the Olympics. The thought of being the first openly gay male ever to compete in the Winter Olympics, I totally embrace that. I so badly want to inspire the community that I'll do well for them. It is effing cool. While Kenworthy's a proud recipient to represent his country in the Olympics, he plans on skipping the traditional Team USA trip to the White House. I have no interest in faking support, he said. He declined any attempts to be involved in a White House visit, especially with the president being involved in his position on transgender programs. It shows more courage to leave the House as a trans person than Trump has ever had to show. Well, certainly will be time for statements like that down the road. And as Olympic coverage continues, we'll be on top of it. Like to thank Bruce Popko, like to thank everybody focusing on pro football, college football, and the Olympics. The big three now will focus on a lot of the other sports as we get closer. Tune in to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Audio Boom, and join us on Apple Podcasts. And join us next week again when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.